Welcome to GESSCast. Tune in and listen as we speak to global education experts about the latest trends, challenges and stories that matter.
Welcome to the GESSCast. I'm Millie and today I'm joined by an inspiring guest live on site at GESS Dubai. I'm with Kat Thorne. Kat is a keynote speaker, teacher and consultant who's renowned for her work on positive habit change and working on wellbeing, workaholism and burnout. So Kat, it's great to have you on site at GESS Dubai.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. It's so, you can feel the energy here, can't you? It's really great to be here.
Yeah, definitely. So to start off, our audience don't really know you. Can you tell us some background on your personal journey? That pivotal moment that made you reassess your path.
Yeah, I mean, I can laugh about it now, but in 2016, when I nearly lost my life, I think that is the biggest pivotal moment you can possibly have.
Sure.
And I remember going to the doctor because I didn't have any feeling in my body whatsoever. And he said to me, "I'm surprised you haven't had a heart attack." And I think that was the greatest wake-up call. And that was the start of what now is the work I'm doing. And I guess the mission I'm on to help people to make one small positive habit change. Because the reason that I lost everything in 2016 and nearly my life was because of the compound effect of years of unhealthy and toxic habits.
Yeah. What are the key things of your new approach then, sort of since that moment?
Well, the thing with habits is it takes time. So even after that happened, I moved, cities, I changed jobs and everything, but my habits sort of followed me around. So it actually took another moment where I, happy accident, started waking up at 5 a.m. And it was almost like it was a test, because the first thought I had was, I could do more work if I was waking up at 5 a.m. every day.
Wow.
Because I think this is the challenge that so many people are facing right now. And with AI coming in thick and fast and the world becoming kind of busier and noisier, people are just living in autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
And most people are waking up and going straight into a kind of work mode, and they're not mentally and physically getting themselves in a frame of mind for the day ahead. And that's what happened to me. I was basically just running in my life. And so now, when I started waking up at 5 a.m., on the third day, I remember reading a book called The Miracle Morning. I don't know if you have this, but I used to have books just piled up that I used to dust.
Yeah.
Like I had every intention of reading them, especially when I bought them, but then I never actually made time to read them. So I remember that morning reading, and my heart was kind of like not racing. It didn't feel like I was going to have a heart attack. And I was like thinking all of these new thoughts, and it really gave me like a different state for the day ahead. And so even though like my work is, the company I called it the morning GameChanger, it's not just about the morning, but I do think there's something very special about the morning which links directly to our personal and our professional performance.
Yeah, I really resonate with that when you said it's not even just with reading, but I do have it with books that I've bought. I think, I can't wait to read this.
Yeah.
And it just sits there. I'm like, why do I not do that? And it's the same. I think there is a name for it. When you stay up late and you end up sort of doom scrolling, it's something to do with like, because you've been working so much of the day.
Yeah.
And it's sort of trying to take that time to yourself, even though I don't want to stay up late because I'm going to be tired again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you're sort of in this vicious cycle of it.
Yeah, and I think it's even worse if you've got kids, because you've spent all day at work, then all evening getting them into their kind of bedtime routine, and then when you finally like collapse on the sofa and it's like me time, you're like, I'm not going to go to bed early, because then it all starts all over again.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I've worked with over the last 2.5 years have made the switch and started spending like quality time with themselves and with their families in the morning, rather than at the end of the day when they are totally exhausted and they have nothing to give. And I think you're right, that whole sort of battling like another episode of Netflix or something, or looking at your doom scrolling on your phone. It's about being aware and noticing that you're doing that and what's the impact of that on you. And I think when you think about like stats, like if you were to look at your phone even 15 minutes less before you go to bed, that could increase your sleep quality by 30%.
Wow.
And then imagine the impact of that on your like work, the productivity the next day. And then imagine that on if you're a parent, like how you're going to handle your kids or how you're going to speak to your partner. Because obviously when we're sleep deprived or we're lacking in energy, we're more likely to, display behaviors that are not loving and caring. And
yeah, that's going to make me check my screen time later today for sure.
But it's really common.
Yeah.
They did a study in 2019, I think it was. And they asked 300,000 people across 30 countries. So this was a truly global study. And they found that 80% of people who told the truth said that they checked their phone within 15 minutes of opening their eyes. I think it's probably higher. And if we're honest, I think we've all been guilty of it. It's like the same as almost, imagine if you were to open your laptop first thing in the morning and last thing at night and start working. And I'm sure there are people who are doing that. But because it's on this little gadget, we don't necessarily see it as the same, like working but I think we are overwhelming our brains with information.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep, you are absorbing information. So when are you resting?
I've heard how it's affecting people's attention spans as well. It's like,
massively.
And we, being in marketing, we really don't know that with social media and the way, and adverts and stuff, people only take in something like the first 2 seconds of something they see, which is crazy when you think, that's nothing.
I know.
It's nothing, yeah.
I know. And the competition, I think, to be really interesting in those first couple of seconds to gauge people's attention.
Yeah.
And to be honest, you'll notice it at this event that it's very common for people to not be able to sit and listen. And I think one of the challenges we face is that it's really hard to be fully present. A lot of people I talk to, a lot of teams I work with will say they've had the experience of being with somebody, especially somebody they care about, but actually their mind being somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot to do with our habits. Like we are constantly, and think about how we work now, like all the notifications, all the things that are grabbing our attention all the time. So one of the things I talk about quite a lot is putting your phone in a home. Right, rather than walking around with it, rather than taking it into your bedroom, like get an old-fashioned alarm clock. I know it sounds really like radical, but it's really not. And it's like so good for your brain health, your mental health, your productivity. I think companies are looking for these quick wins to get more sales, to make people perform better, to hit targets. And I think it's all about our habits. It's all within. It's all about taking personal responsibility, which is a hard message to convey if you're an employer.
Yeah, and that's one of the focuses you have, isn't it? It's like it's those small changes, not looking at the big picture, because I think that's where people get quite overwhelmed and their motivation dips. They're like, well, that looks like a lot of change. I don't even know how to start tackling that.
Exactly.
But it's those smaller things.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that, maybe?
So I focus on every single talk I do. I do two things. One, I use an interactive tool called Mentimeter. So they're an organisation I've used, the software I've used for 2.5 years. In fact, I even used it before in kind of education. And what I love about that is it's an anonymous way of sharing what people are actually struggling with, how well are they looking after themselves, and then ultimately getting them to commit to making one small positive habit change. And the other thing I think that I do to help people to really create change is to get them to focus on one thing, but make it really achievable. And so I talk about the 10-minute run. So, and I've tested this in a lot of different countries now, where I'll go for a run and I'll give the hotel my key, because sometimes keys in different countries are different sizes, not optimal for running. So I leave the key at reception. I go for a 10-minute run, because 10 minutes is more than enough, especially when you're starting. But automatically the brain wants to reject it. But actually what ends up happening is we think, oh, it has to be 30 minutes. It has to be a gym workout. If it's not good, if it's not this, it's not good enough, it's not going to do anything. And people end up doing nothing. So I really want to normalize doing 10 minutes of something. And then when I come back from these 10-minute runs overseas or even in the UK, and I get my key back and hotel receptionists say to me, well, that was a bit quick. And I feel like saying, how far have you run today?
Yeah.
Or for how long have you run? Or have you actually done any kind of movement?
It's better than nothing.
It
Yeah,
is.
for sure.
But the brain really always wants to kind of sabotage us. It's its job to keep us safe. But a lot of people kind of are relieved when I share this information, but I can also feel that a lot of people are questioning it, understandably. So I always say to people, don't believe me, try it for yourself, because 10 minutes a couple of weeks ago meant I could run 10 miles. I did a race in my home city, and I know that running for 10 minutes in fresh air gives me the most insane amount of resilience and energy and focus for the day ahead. And so I don't have a desire to run for an hour regularly. I do a lot of different things, but one thing for me now is a non-negotiable, and that's what I really want to help people to create themselves, is just create this bit of space in the morning for yourself.
Yeah.
Because imagine, the productivity waste of getting yourself in that headspace once you're already at work.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually do a similar thing. Well, I can't remember the name of the book. I was just trying to remember it. I read a book and it was all about something was to do with habits and breaking things down into little chunks. Because I feel like I'm quite a productive person. I like to be productive. That sort of makes me feel good. I like to be efficient.
Yeah.
But sometimes I find it a bit overwhelming when I've got a big task or I've got a lot on my to-do list for the day and I'm like, oh my God, where do I even start then?
Yeah.
And then I'm less productive because I'm like, I'm not just getting on with one thing. And so sometimes I'll just tell myself in my head, I'm like, okay, well, you've got this big report to do. Okay, well, just open up the Excel file and save the name of it. It sounds stupid saying it, but it really helps. I'm like, okay, well, that was okay. And I'm like, okay, well, now we'll just do this one bit. Okay, and then that's fine. And that wasn't too bad. Okay, now I'll just do this one bit. And then after a little while, you're kind of you're in it.
You're doing it.
And I do the same with running or the gym. If I can I really don't want to go outside, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just put my gym clothes on and then I can just, I'll sit and do whatever else I need to do in my room for a bit. And then, okay, I'll just go out and even if I go for 5 minutes, and then you're always going to do more because you're out the door anyway.
Yeah. And I think the more
really
you do it, the more benefit you get from it. So now it's so difficult for me not to do it because I know what's on the other side. I've experienced all of that positive energy and all of the benefits that come from it. I am the happiest and healthiest and highest performing I've ever been, personally and professionally, because of these habits. So now I'm able to override a thought, which I still get regularly. You're tired, you can't be bothered, you did it yesterday, you don't need to do it. And I'm able now to notice those thoughts and override them, because I realise that is how our brains are designed to function. But unfortunately, most people are running so fast that they think that they are their thoughts. And I think there's a great book called The Chimp Paradox, and it teaches you about the difference between yourself and your thoughts, and you are able to control them to an extent. And I think that's where positive change really starts. It's with our beliefs. So if you believe exercise has to be a certain way, you will never ever overcome it because you're stuck with that belief. But if you believe that what we're saying has some truth to it, that 10 minutes is enough, then you will. You'll tap into your potential, you'll start doing some kind of movement, and you'll get all the benefits from it. It's really incredible. And as you can hear, I'm so passionate about it, which is why I came to Dubai for the first time to this event, because I think people around the world are suffering as a result of their habits, but as a result of the environment that we live in, the high-pressured, fast-paced world we live in. It's only going to get faster.
I think that's the scary thing of as much as you can be amazed by all these new things coming out and how, Dubai especially, constantly developing. But then at the same time, burnout and stress is just going through the roof.
Yeah.
I know for my generation, I feel like we're quite an anxiety-riddled generation. And it's just because there's so much going on and so much of it's in your face, on your phone. And you don't want to feel like you're missing out on stuff and you feel like you have to be keeping up with things. But that has such detrimental effects on your mental health.
Yeah.
I know you said about one small habit, but do you have any particular tips you'd give to an individual on, how they can start making those small changes to help them when you're still in that digital space and in a fast-paced world? Some things feel a little bit out of your control.
They do. I think a couple of things that are really simple to get started. One is super boring, but going to bed at the same time every night and getting up at the same time is one of the best things you can do for your mental health. It lowers stress. It helps you feel more in control, because I think what happened to me and what I see a lot of people now is that they're kind of, they don't have a set wake up time. So they're just kind of waking up whatever time, and they're not maybe going to bed at the same time, which isn't regulating their kind of rhythm. So I think that's a really good place to start, especially if you don't sleep well and you wake up feeling tired. That's a really good one. And the phone is such an obvious one, because it is the number one contributing factor to poor mental health. So do you know when you have, I don't know if you've ever had a phone detox, like even for a day, or like, because I've gone on a few of them. I've done a few days, I've done a week. And
I have seen those,
and even just an hour before bed or at some point during the day, you feel like a new person. Once you've stopped going like this, looking for it, you feel like a new person. And I think like just putting your phone away, or like in a drawer or on a side, and then just like doing something that makes you feel really good, playing an instrument, coloring, writing, like having a coffee with a friend, going for a walk, like these things sound so simple, but they are the key to unlocking, like reducing stress, reducing anxiety, increasing our performance, better relationships, like, and that's the thing about positive habits. When you make one change, it has this ripple effect in every part of your life. That's why they're so powerful.
Yeah. People say as well, it's like once you've taken that time to yourself and kind of filled up your own cup, you're sort of a better person around those people that you love and care about. Like I always find if I'm feeling a bit stressed or quite anxious, and then I'm like, okay, I want a bit of time to myself, and then I'm like, oh, I'm missing out on doing that with my friends if I do take time to myself. But actually afterwards, if I have had that sort of me time, I feel like I show up better, because I'm in a better mood. I feel more relaxed. I'm like, no, I've taken that time to myself, fully relaxed, just sort of switched off a little bit. And then I feel like I can be a better friend, a better partner, a better sister.
No, that's 100% the case. But I think a lot of people feel like they don't give themselves permission to do that. They feel guilty, again, especially if you're a parent or if you're the leader of an organization. You've got to be seen to be working the most sometimes. You've got to be seen to be, doing that. And I think this is where the opportunity lies, but this is where also the danger is, because what's the cost of losing your best people? There's a huge cost, not just a financial cost, but a huge cost in so many different ways. And that's what happened to me. My company lost me, not through any fault of their own. And, I was there for 7 years. Imagine the knowledge and the connections and the relationships and that just disappeared. Like the cost of attrition is huge.
Yeah.
And I think when I talk to employers about investing in the work that we're doing or other organizations doing around well-being and resilience, it's linked to performance. And I think more and more people are starting to understand the connection between your personal habits, your work habits, and how you perform at work and at home. They are completely connected. And this idea that you're going to the office and leaving everything personal behind isn't real. It doesn't exist.
No. And how did you start working with organisations?
Well, it was, again, a little bit of a coincidence. So my old boss from Norway, he called me one day and he said, I like your positivity stuff on LinkedIn. And he invited me to a similar event to this, but in London. And he said, look, I've got 100 Norwegians on this yacht. I want you to talk to them. And so it kind of gave me the opportunity to design a high impact interactive talk. And it kind of went from there. As they say, the rest is history. And I found that organizations, they realize how important this is. And it's a really, as I said earlier, it's a really hard message to convey to employees, like to help them to take personal responsibility for their well-being.
Yeah.
And I think employees are doing more than they've ever done before. There are so many initiatives. We've even seen like goat yoga. I mean, it's so many cool and weird and wonderful things, but actually people are more stressed and overwhelmed than they've ever been. And I really believe if we can get people to make one small positive habit change at a time, we can totally unlock the power of performance, mental health, well-being, resilience, all of it, because I think it all lies within the small choices we make every day.
Yeah, it's so good to see companies taking it more seriously.
Yeah,
There's been a real focus on the people as opposed to just the business.
Definitely. And one of the projects I'm working on now is that now we're starting to, we're working internationally, and I'm doing, I'm getting on bigger stages, working with more organizations, which is amazing. But I'm also getting to a point of now, how do I help people to continue with these positive habit changes after I leave? So we are working now with a digital AI learning platform organization to start to digitize this, so organizations can carry on making those changes within their organizations without having to constantly hire people to come in, because long term it's not sustainable, and actually it needs to be part of the DNA of an organization. So it's a really, really exciting time, and it's great that as you say, organizations are investing in it and taking it more seriously.
And do you have any success stories from any organizations that you've worked with?
I've got loads, but I can think of, a few different personal stories from people who I've worked with. So one organization I worked with, their sales director, Max, he as I said earlier, he switched his routine up. So rather than, he realized that he was snoozing his alarm in the morning and kind of rushing around with his wife and his kids. And he realized this after working together. And what he did was he put in, he stopped snoozing and put in like a little bit of time for himself and his family in the morning, which it seems like, even sometimes I say that out loud and it's hard to get your head around, because it's so different to what most people do.
Yeah.
It's like we're bred to leave it to the end of the day, which seems crazy because that's when we are at our worst.
Yeah.
So he decided to switch it round, and then he found that he was happier because he had better connections with his family, with his wife and his kids, and more time for himself. And that had a huge knock-on effect on his performance at work. And so that's what I mean. It's like this really clever ripple effect, this cycle. And, I've got lots of stories of people like that. And it's just it's so incredible to watch people making one tiny change, but yet see their personal and professional lives completely transform.
Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely going to be thinking about my morning routine now more than my evening routine. Like, make the most of it, really, isn't it?
Definitely. And I think, again, one of the reasons we snooze is because we're tired, because of what we did the night before, and because we're not in these kind of routines and we haven't got these habits in place, and we're almost like letting life run us rather than kind of taking control. And you look at businesses, they all have strategies, they all have business plans, they all have focuses they want to achieve, but it's the same with our lives, but yet we are quite willing to just be almost like led by other things. And for me, this is about getting people back in the driving seat and getting back control of their lives, because it's about realizing that it doesn't have to be like this. Like, life, in my opinion, is too short to wake up every day thinking, here we go again. Like, it's so tragic. And so I think every single day I'm committed to this mission, because life is way too short and there's so much to be kind of experienced and enjoyed.
And how do you maintain that? Because I imagine you're flying all over the place, speaking at international conferences. How do your schedule must be all over the place. So how do you, I guess, maintain your personal positive habits?
Well, I live by this kind of 80-20 rule. So I allow some space for like life to happen, because that's the reality of the world. And I think you have to do that. But like, I kind of write all this on social media and joke about this, but my habits follow me now. So I always pack my trainers, and I know that wherever I am, I can always do a run, or I book hotels that have gyms, or I kind of plan my agenda so I can fit in the time to get myself in the best headspace. So for me, and like, I guess around food and things, increased ultra processed foods is becoming a huge challenge and impact on mental health. So again, I'm just more conscious now of what I'm eating, and being sure to make sure I get like the healthy food in, the protein sources. I don't drink alcohol anymore, so I think that helps. But all of this is about just being aware and having like a micro version. So I don't have time when I'm traveling to do all the things that I do when I'm at home. So I just do a shorter, quicker version of it. But I would never, ever, ever go back to living the way I used to, because I know that that's going to end in a very dark place.
Yeah.
You know, waking up and going on your phone is one of the worst things that you can do, and it nearly killed me. So for me now, I want to go into my day in control, feeling really focused and fresh, and then tackle whatever comes at me.
Yeah, totally. And you're going to be speaking at GESS Dubai this year,
Yes.
later on today.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you want the sort of key takeaways to be for attendees when they come to your session?
I think the key takeaway is that AI is changing our world so rapidly. It's so exciting. There's so many great things that are coming out of it. But people have never been more important than they are right now, and they will continue to be so important because we need people to unlock the potential of AI. And if our people are not healthy and high performing, then who is going to tap into the potential that AI is offering us? So my key message really is just making that one small positive habit change and making sure you are mentally and physically ready for the day means that we can unlock everything that is about to evolve in our world.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to it.
Oh, I'm excited.
Thank you so much for joining us
My
on
pleasure.
site and the podcast today. You know, it's amazing to hear. You've had a very powerful journey, I think. I mean, I don't know where I've got some habits I'm definitely going to be
Thank
sort of
you.
trying to implement.
Thank you.
So yeah, really, really great to hear from you today. And to all of our listeners, stay tuned. We're going to have some more podcast episodes going up on the GESS Education website. And we'll see you in GESS Dubai next year.